Roy, I would give you, I would make you
control
now. Okay. So
okay.
Roy,
So do you want me to use your
no.
slide?
So I'm already. I've started sharing this slide.
Okay,
Yeah, I can be your navigator if that's okay.
right. So please, all right, the administrators are doing their work. Wonderful. I'll also want you to be able to restrain me because when I start to talk, I don't want to stop. So all the
Okay.
breaks and stuff, I'll
Okay.
be looking out for the prompts so that I don't go on talking. But of
Okay.
course, we'll try and make it as interactive as possible. For
Okay.
all those that are on the training, if you have any question to ask, either put it in the chat and somebody will draw my attention to it, or if they give you control to ask me the question, we'll do our best to answer it. Meanwhile, my background or my first life when I started my career was in mathematics and computer science. So actually, it's not 16 years, it's 20 years because I've been keeping counts. It matters to a mathematician if you go off by one, how much more 4 years, right? So I'm in the security and privacy space, and Wale and I have come a very, very long way. I don't want to say how long because then you'll start to calculate how old we are in this career. In the security and privacy space that we are, ISO 27001 is a very, very big part. I've sat on panels. The panels has now even gone beyond just security and privacy. Um, I've been on the panel for business continuity, for the pandemic preparedness and response as well. So before even the coronavirus situation came up, I was on a panel. And then I'll be in another one in November. But as we're here for the ISO, I'm going to do my best to pass on the foundational level knowledge that you need for the time that we've got together. And then hopefully a number of you will see what prospects there are in this path. So that's the aim. And I'll just say welcome to this tonight. Okay, so this is how we want to do it. We would today introduce you to information security management system. Now, for some of you who might know it, and for those who might not know it, ISO 27001 has another way of calling it, and that way of calling it is an information security management system. That's what it is, it's an ISMS. So when you hear ISMS, Information Security Management System, or ISO 27001, it's all referring to the same thing. We'll also do an assessment of what you learned from that introduction. We'll take a break at about 8, and then we'll continue that until 9, and then come for the rest tomorrow. Please, one of the reasons why, apart from privacy, one of the reasons why we want your videos off is that it distracts me. It takes me off my trail of thought. So please, the lights that come on when your videos come on is distracting. So please, everyone check their videos, please. Thank you. Okay, so this is the ISO 27001 foundation. For some of the technical standards by the ISO, they also put the IEC, which stands for the Information Electrotechnical Commission. When they do bring out standards together, they put that together. 27,000, when you see a leading 27, it tells you it has to do with security. So 27,001 is Information Security Management System, and this is the foundation training. So we'll allow you to learn the basic elements with which to implement and manage an information security management system that is contained within the standard. Of course, we need people to check what we implement. So there's also the option to do the auditor training. So, but for this one, we'll be showing you what it means to implement it at the foundational level. A more basic form of this training is the introduction one, but we have now embraced all in 2. So you're getting 2 packages in 1, and of course, covering 2 days. So we'll show you how to understand the different modules that we've packaged in this training. That includes an ISMS policy, how it differentiates from an information security policy possible sometimes. Also procedures that are drawn out of policy, performance measurements or metrics, how to measure what you're doing, because you want to try to sell the importance or the benefits of the implementation of a management system. We'll explain what management commitment is and what it bears on an ISMS. Of course, the check is the internal audit. So the course content would have the introduction, the planning phase, the risk management phase as part of the planning phase because it's contained within it. And then the do phase is how we implement it. So we're using the Deming wheel or the PDCA cycle. Okay, the plan, do, check, act cycle. The Deming wheel is the plan, do, check, act. It's a PDCA. We'll do the planning, we'll do the implementation, the check-in, and then the acting. We'll explain all of that as we go along. And then the second part of the standard contains what is referred to as the Annex A, control objectives and controls. Yeah, so it contains control objectives. When you implement controls out after the risk management, you want to put controls to handle threats that you may have assessed. So the control objectives gives a justification for any expenditure for controls. So if you put a door to prevent people from coming into a reserved area, you would justify why that door is there. That's what the annex does, an objective and a control, right? So you will learn ISO 27001 elements and best practices for compliance, what the ISMS is, the elements and operations of it to understand it, the correlation between the first standard 27001 and 27002, and then of course how it relates with other frameworks, GDPR, right. 27701, the Privacy Information Management System. Yeah.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt you there. I think someone said there is a bit of a white noise in your background there.
Oh, I think that's my laptop. I'll try to handle that. It's okay. My laptop. Yeah, it's a fan from my laptop.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right. And if you don't, sorry again, there might be some people waiting in the lobby, in the waiting room. I've given you control. You might just
That's what I was saying. Yeah, because all right, I'll let them in, but it'll distract me from my.
Okay, okay, if you let them in, I do
I've done that now.
Okay. Yeah. But I will see what I can do. If I can remove that control.
Is the white noise, is it the same for everyone?
Sorry?
Please find out if the noise, you know, the noise you talked about, if it's the same for everybody.
I think it's okay now.
All right.
It's okay now. You can go ahead. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's so strange that I can't hear it on my side. I have to pump out the laptop. Okay, so we'll also, this is a very important point, the correlation between the primary standard 27001 and the code of practice 27002, and of course, other standards. Okay, bear with me 1 second. I'm going to let people in because it's showing me I need to. As soon as somebody takes control of that, then I'll let it go. Good. Yeah. So, and then of course, look at the different ways of implementing. There are so many methodologies. Some I have created myself. Some I've used from other people's methodologies. Some, when I go to consult for businesses, they tell me what method they prefer. So we'll look at some of these approaches, some other standards, methods and techniques for implementation and management. Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you. So not only looking at the benefits from doing this on a personal level, but also companies. So this is one of the ways to sell the essence of the ISMS. Okay, if you have implemented ISO 27001 and you have good management system for your information security, that means you have good practices, you have adequate policies, your procedures are checked and reviewed and also relevant, then it's possible to avoid hefty fines because your practices would point you in a way to have an effective way of protecting your assets. Okay, ISO directs ISO directs. Somebody can't hear me. Well, he's the only one who's complaining of not hearing me.
The noise is back again. I don't know.
It's not, I can't hear any noise from my side, so I don't know what's going on.
I can hear it. The student can hear it.
But there are those that are saying I can't hear any noise. A number of people are saying I can't hear.
I can't hear it.
Exactly. So it's selective. I don't know where that's from.
Yeah, I can't hear it either. So we need to just.
Just a few can, and there are those who are saying they can hear me, but some can. There's so many saying they can't hear.
Okay. All right.
I don't know where it's from.
It's interesting. Let's just go on.
Right.
Yeah. Let's just go on. That's
hi, Roy. It's Harry here. I think there's no noise. It's only when you now started moving. Maybe you were moving something around there. That's when the noise came from. But before now, there was no noise.
Okay. But I barely moved anything. I'm just speaking. But let's see. I'll be more alert to it.
Yeah. Someone says it starts when you start presenting. But again, let's see if we can manage it. Even the noise itself is a bit of distractions anyway. But go ahead. All right. Go on. Go on.
All right. Please just let me know if it comes back again.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Stanley. So the benefits are huge. There are so many. Okay. You know what? I think I should stop moving my mouse. That could be it. So the management of people coming in, somebody please take that from me.
Okay.
Like I said, it distracts me, and that could be the reason why we hear the noise. Because I'm trying to admit people and I'm moving the mouse. I think that's what's causing it.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, just go on then.
Cool. So you have good security. You would be, because based on your risk appetite as well, the security you put in place, the protections and the controls will not be too much with ISO 27001, and it won't be too little. It will be adequate, just enough. Just imagine going to a restaurant and you want to eat something delicious and you order for food and they bring it to you. You don't want to overfeed yourself such that the nutrients or the taste that you like so much becomes a burden. And then you don't want to have too little such that you're looking for, you're trying to get more of it. Just enough that you remember it, it lingers, is adequate. That's what 27001 tries to do. Okay, based on your risk appetite, and then of course it allow you to comply with other standards and frameworks that apply to your own business. If GDPR applies to you, 27001 can help you comply with that. If PCI DSS for payment card industry, if it applies to you, 27001 would help you comply with that too. Just imagine that you're conforming to a standard, but it's driving you to compliance to other frameworks. Yeah, GDPR for General Data Protection Regulation. Okay, so it allows you to comply with other frameworks as well, which is a very, very good thing. So we kill several birds with one stone. All right, let's go to the next slide. Now, this course, whether the foundation, the lead implementer, or any of the other track, is suitable for those who are involved in information security and especially security management. Now, it's different. Security management is not security operations. Security operation is for those who are a bit junior and hands-on. Security management is for those who want to manage, as in run stuff, run things. So it's for security management. Of course, you can start off junior and then grow into management. So it's for running the show eventually, or anyone who wants to gain knowledge of the processes within an ISMS. I always urge people to start off with ISO 27001. It makes the growth in information security easy. So if you want to go to more technical stuff in information security, start off with 27001. It makes it a lot easier, trust me. Please admit 2 people into the room. There are 2 waiting. So we have these modules. We split the course into 6 modules, from intro to what information security eventually is. In between, we've got the ISMS, the different clauses. So we see the clauses in the standard. We'll see how to implement it, and then of course, risk assessment and the risk management process. You'll be able to differentiate what risk assessment is from risk management that leads you to having an effective information security, not just any information security. Okay, there are 7 people waiting to come in. Please, can we admit them in before the course starts proper?
You have the full control, so I have to.
But that's the thing. If I start
I have
letting them in, the noise will come.
I have to bother you with that one, unfortunately.
No, that's fine. I don't mind. But when I start to move the mouse, the noise comes back in.
I think maybe we should just admit them in the block. So if you take in those 7 people, but I think what would happen tomorrow is people would join much early. And
okay, that's fine. I've done that now.
We can solve the problem of this noise, hopefully. So we do apologize. This is just technology, and sometimes it's just way out of your control. Yep. Yes, go ahead, Roy.
So the course module is the intro, is our first module. We'll see what 27001 is, how it applies, where it applies, the objectives for it, and then of course the mission. The second module is what the ISMS is, the benefits, the PDCA cycle, and of course the implementation life cycle, which is iterative. And then module 3 will be the clauses, understanding the first 7 clauses, which are referred to as the strategic level, plus 4 to 10, and then what 27001 means, how to apply them as well, and where to apply them. Okay, the 4th module is the implementation. So how to implement it as a project, the different approaches, the role of management in driving commitment, and to show how important it is, and also how everybody else can get responsibilities, basically have some role to play in information security. And then of course, the journey to certification via a process. Okay. Then the 5th module would be risk management and risk assessment, how to do risk assessment and eventually treat the risk that you analyze and find, you identify. You now produce what is referred to as a SOA, a statement of applicability, to show what controls apply within a particular business, because ISO 27001 is actually contextual. That means it's not a one-size-fits-all. So the statement of applicability is one pointer to how unique each implementation is with regards to the risk and the context of that business. The 6th module will now look at threats and vulnerabilities related to the risk management we've done, and then the controls from the Annex A. Then we'll look at different layers of controls, from physical to operations to communication to cryptography to compliance to access control, and all the different clauses in the annex, and there are 14 of them. Okay. We'll now give you, so that's how we'll start. Let's go ahead. Yep. Please move the slide. Now this is showing us the family of the ISO standards. Now ISO actually stands for International Organization for Standardization, and ISO, the 3-letter word, is actually a word derived from Latin to mean equal. Okay, so 27001 contains the requirements. ISO 27001 is the requirements. 27002 is the code of practice. So there's a switch there. The requirements, what is required of organizations, is contained in the first standard, 27001. The code of practice is a manner of implementing controls by looking at objectives. So the code of practice is the 27002. Meanwhile, for those starters who maybe after they do a foundation and they do a lead implementer or a manager course, want to start implementing without a lot of supervision, they could actually do that implementation by using a guide called ISO 27003. It actually guides you on implementing ISO 27001. So it is a project management standard with guides. Now, once you've implemented, you want to measure your implementation. You can use a metric standard, and 27004 is such metric standard, especially to measure information security management system. Don't forget, it also has a leading 27, so it helps you measure it. 27005 is information security risk management standard. It aligns with two clauses in the standard, clause 6.1.1 all the way to 6.1.3. So the planning part of ISO 27001 aligns with 27005. Also, clause 8.2 and clause 8.3 under operation aligns with risk management 27005. And then 27006 is a requirement for those businesses, those organizations that give out this certification to businesses that go through a journey to be certified. Those certification bodies have to comply to 27006 themselves. So they are accredited to give out these certificates. They are assessed to see that they are genuine entities, and they have the policies, the procedures, the capability in terms of human and capital resources to maintain and issue out these certificates. So that's the 27006. Okay. So 27001, its current version is the 2013 version. Before that, we had a 2005 version with a mini revision in 2008. Now it's 2013. The usual cycle of revision is 5 years, but they've kept it for a bit now. It was revised in 2019, but it still carries the nomenclature 2013. Now, whether or not they will issue out what has been revised last year remains to be seen. Okay, it's prepared with in conjunction with the Joint Technical Committee. Remember, I told you when they do that together, it is referred to as ISO/IEC for the full name. Well, of course, when you look in the market and on the websites, yeah. Is somebody talking to me, or they haven't muted themselves? Mute, please, mute.
Roy, can we do something? Can you flip that control back to me? The host control, can you flip it back to me, please?
Yeah.
And I would manage it going forward, okay?
Yep.
And I can also help with the admitting people in and
exactly. So all I need is just voice.
yeah, just voice. If you send that control back to me, that would be great.
Yeah.
Just make me the host.
No, I don't have the option to
just look for me. Look for Wale Omolere and right click on it and give me the host. Just look for my name. You can search for my name there.
Yeah, I don't have all those options you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm manually searching, don't worry.
Have you looked for the participants? Can you see the participants list?
I can't see it and I can't call it.
There's at the bottom of the screen, there's an option for participants.
I don't have that. That's what I'm saying. I don't have that.
Just bear with me. Let's see.
I don't have the options for that because I'm not. They just paid me a temporary host. So what I'm doing is I'm going through the chat to look for him and then give him the control.
Because I can see you here. You are.
Yeah, I'm not a real host. I'm a pseudo host.
Wale, send him a direct message. He'll find you.
I found him now.
You found me now.
Yeah.
So if you give it back to me, that would be great. Then I can. If you just put your cursor on the on my name, and you would find where it says more. So if you do the more, then you could see Is that okay?
Seen it? I know. Yes, found it. It took me a while to get it on my screen.
Okay, so I have it back. All right then. So you can fire on, and I
Okay,
will do what
fantastic.
the.
Okay, please make it full screen for me. I don't want to see the participants.
Okay. Okay, give me a sec. Can you see the slide now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Wonderful. Yeah. Good. So ISO 27001 is referred to as a primary standard. That means you can get certified against it. Many of those we saw, 27002, 3, 4, 5, we can't certify against. And then, of course, organizations that issue a certificate can certify against 6. Okay, so it is a primary standard. That's where we get the requirements, where we are told what we need if we want to get certified. And that's why, for those of us as individuals who want to be called ISO specialists, we would need to go through a training, an exam, and then get certified to 27001. So it's the one that is a primary standard. The applicability is for anyone that is tasked with practical implementation of an ISMS. It can apply across industries for anywhere there's information and you have a need to protect that information. So it is not cyber security, it is not IT security, it is not computer security, it is information security. If we wanted to protect this information we're sharing now, which is on a PC across the internet, that is cyber security. It is embraced by information security. If we were talking in a boardroom and all we're doing is just physically talking to each other, listening as face to face, and we wanted to protect what we were saying, that too will come under the umbrella of information security. So information security is the father figure for all security, anywhere there's information. Okay, so to learn about the best practices is the reason why we're here and how to manage an ISMS. Cool. Cool. So I did say ISO stands for the International Organization for Standardization. And it has a network of several national bodies. So nations have their own standard organizations and standard bodies. They come together, there are about 160. And you can imagine 160 countries where we have 195 countries. So together, they've come to create standards. There have been several standards, over 19,000 of them since 1947. Whether it's ISO 31034 for brewing tea, or it's for supply chain management, or it's for quality management, environmental. We have so many standards for biomedical devices as well. Anywhere there's a need or a market demand to have best practice, they create a standard. Okay. And the reasoning behind 27001 is to adopt, to establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve ISMS. Now, you see within that statement, it has the plan, do, check, act. Establish, plan. Implement is another synonym for doing. Maintain, check. And then, of course, continually improve, act on the things you check. So the PDCA is contained in that statement. You want to adopt it. You want to establish. You have to look at your needs. You have to look at the applicability, whether you require it to make yourself more secure. The objectives for the controls you set, look at the requirements, consider your organizational size, and then of course, what processes you have in place already. So these are the considerations before you do that. Yeah, and that's why it says some, if not all of these factors will change. You have to have a tester, you have to have a feel and an indicator if any of these things change, if your size changes, if your business process change, if your products and your activities change, it will cause a change in the ISMS. We refer to them as significant changes, okay? When you implement ISMS, you look at the context of the business, the location, the product, the service, the structure, the technology, and all those other kinds of things, okay? Yeah, let's go. The certificate is typically valid for 3 years. Now, not only for organizations that get certified, but individuals like yourselves, if you become ISO 27001 certified, the certificate will last for 3 years. In between, you need to maintain the things that got you that certificate in the first place. That means your processes would be assessed from time to time on a schedule to see that you are maintaining what got you that certificate in the first place. Okay, that's why it says you need to perform satisfactorily during surveillance audits. Those surveillance audits are also referred to as calendar audits. So every 12 months, typically, unless there's something significant, and they think of doing an on-the-spot audit, you get audited. So there's a cycle of audit, and then there's a post or recertification audit at the end of 3 years. Okay. The high-level methodology and the thought behind ISO 27001, like all ISO standards, not just 27001, is customer focused. And that's why ISO standards are created where there's a market demand, because they want customers to get a benefit from suppliers, from partners, from providers. And they don't want people to be treated, or companies or partners, interested parties to be treated just about anyhow. There's a customer focus. Customers have to get a benefit from security, just like they should get from quality, like they should get from environment. Okay, there's leadership in the way ISO standards are created. There's a thought that management must be involved at all the stages. It's not a tactical thing, it's a strategic thing. So there's leadership. Every stakeholder must be involved. So there's feedback. There's a feedback mechanism within ISO standards, and definitely within 27001. There's a feedback mechanism. It is process-centric. That means there's an input, there's activities, and there's output in every layer. If we go through a step, say as an example, the risk management step, where are we getting the input for what we want to do? And then we do the risk management, and then there's an output where to fit it out to. So that's the process centricity. Okay. It also uses a systematic approach to management. So all the things we do are not done accidentally. They are properly organized, they are planned, they are done, they are structured. There's a method to what some might think is madness. People are involved in it, so it's systematic. And not just in ISO, in any information security framework, there's always the idea of continual improvement. Now, this continual improvement, we see it in real life. Many years ago, cars where you would have to put your key in the ignition to turn them on. They were all fuel-based, either diesel or petrol. But seeing where cars are today, look at, what's this one, Tesla. It's all electric. You can be in several floors above the ground and start your car, let it start running. All these are continual improvement concepts. Even if you are operating at an optimal level, there must always be the thought to improve where you are because of competition, customer needs, advancement in technology. So continual improvement is also tied into security. And for this one, it's because of threats, advancement in technology, value of stuff. We have to continuously think of how to improve security. It must also enable fact-based decision making. So there must be no guesswork when management want to work. Okay, when they want to take decisions, it will affect the business. They must get real information. It must not be guesswork. It must not be conjecture. It must be fact-based so that the decisions they take that affects customers, that affects employees, that affects the surrounding community, that maybe affects the banks they work with, financial institutions, and in some cases, the media or government, depending on the organization, the decisions are based on facts and not guesses. And eventually, finally, to get some benefit and give some benefit. So a mutually beneficial supply chain relationship. Everyone getting good security, everyone get good quality, because ISMS gives security, quality, and hopefully privacy. Okay. Yes. So when we select the places where we want to implement ISO or information security, we are looking at our assets in terms of people, processes, and technology. And when we say people, processes, and technology, these are the high-level descriptions of the assets. We could also have networks, of course, that goes on the technology. We could also have the site, yeah, the place where they are based. We could also have the structure, whether we are autonomous, whether we are a subsidiary, whether we work in a matrix structure. All of those things become assets. But like I said, at the high level, we look at PPT. Anywhere there's a need for information, anywhere it's taken from, anywhere it's processed, and anywhere it's sent to. Everybody involved in it, every entity that touches it in its different state, whether at rest, as we do in databases, or memory, whether in motion, in temporary memory, on our screens, and whether transferring it on networks. All of these things get involved in security. So what would happen when there's a breach, when there's a disruption, when it's altered, that information has to be protected in terms of its confidentiality, its integrity, and availability. That is referred to as the CIA triad. And so we look at security in its different states. ISO 27001 helps us look beyond technology, as you can see. So people, processes, and technology. So now we've just mentioned assets, but then how do we identify assets that need protection? First of all, it has to be information, okay? But an asset, by proper definition, is anything in an organization that is valuable enough to push us, to drive us to want to protect it. If you want to protect your building, you want it to survive, because that's where people go and get a salary, that becomes an asset. If you want to protect where your server is, that is an asset. So we have categories of assets. The information itself, okay? Because information now has value, not data. So information is meaningful data. Data is just raw stuff. If you consider data to be raw meat, information is cooked meat because it's been processed. It has meaning. If data is name, surname, a place of work, without any information of what that refers to, information is when we complete it and put it together. It's Roy, Biakpara, in London, in London Incorporated. When you put all those things together and it gives meaning, that is information. Okay? The software where the information is hosted is also an asset. The computer, the database, the services or processes that we use that information on, the people that use that computer, where the information is based, and where the software runs it, now become the assets that we want to protect as well. And then our reputation and image, if we lose that information, or if it gets corrupted, or if it's no longer available. So everywhere that information touches now becomes an asset, okay? So if we have computer or corporate information, say information that we've got from the government, and we want to protect it, as soon as it gets into our premises, we might put it in memory, or we might put it in a USB stick. That USB stick automatically becomes valuable because the government has an expectation to protect it. And then we might transfer it. It might be somebody holding it. All where it touches now become assets. We want to protect that information. Okay. So we've just looked at primary information. Give you this as instance now. Somebody wants to get recruited. So he speaks with someone in HR. He gives his CV. He has details of his work history. All that information at that point becomes primary asset. As he gives it to HR, HR puts it in a CRM system. The CRM system now becomes a supporting asset. So it's now transferred to another department so that he gets his name put on a payroll system and all that. Everything else behind the scene now becomes a supporting asset. The information he gives and the HR system, primarily that process of recruitment, are primary assets. Everything behind the scene becomes supporting assets. Okay, so the premises, the hardware, the software become supporting assets. But the recruitment process and the information he supplied are the primary assets that we looked on before this page. Okay, so these supporting assets play an important role in terms of controls. If a supporting asset is broken, it might affect a primary asset. That's fine. Let's go to the next. So the journey for the 27001 standard I told you about just now started in 2005. Well, actually longer before that. In actual fact, in 1990, it was the business standard, and it was a code of practice along the way. Around 92, 98, it was revised. Then it became an ISO standard in 2000, where the international body now said, hey, all these people that have come together to create this best practice in Britain, they have a good way of assuring security. Let's embrace it internationally. So other countries, away from just those small industries within UK, within Britain, now made it an international standard. And it has been going through different iterations. All ISO standards typically have a 5-year cycle, but sometimes it extends beyond that depending on the rate of change in technology, in regulation, and other things around the world. So we are waiting for the one that would have been the 2018 revision. It has extended up to 2020. So waiting for it to come. Good. Yep. So you see in 92, it was a code of practice for security management, and it was a BS standard. It was a British standard. 95, the BSI took it on, where the BSI, which is the British Standards Institute, and it was labeled BS 7799. Adekunle, please your mic. Thank you. So it was a British standard in 95, taken on by the British Standards Institute and labeled BS 7799. In the next stage or the next phase of the evolution in 2000, that's where, like I said, it was taken on by the international body, the ISO, and then given a label ISO 17799 to reflect where it has come from. Remember, it was a 7799, and even at that point, it was still a code of practice. Then, in the next iteration, 5 years later, in its usual cycle, so you can see 95 to 2000, 5 years, 2000 to 2005, 5 years. But then it was revised. It took some time. I think it took 7 years. It was revised in 2012 and then published in 2013. And that is the current version, which is what we're showing you now. So the 2013 means the year in which the current version was revised. So it was revised in 2013, and that's why it's still the current version. We are expecting a 2019 or now 2020 version. So it will become 27001 2020. Is to indicate the year that it was revised. I got a question on that, so I'll just answer that. Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, we would start the ISMS, or I'll take direction from Wale, whether to break now or to start this module and then break at when we were supposed to.
I think because we wished a lot of times, but I understand this is the first day, and you'd it's normal, if I can put it that way. So I would advise that we continue. Tomorrow is going to be a lot better. People would sign in much more early, and we understand the rules now. So because we have a lot to cover, I would advise that we continue. All right.
Yes. Yep. So just go on. Yeah, Wale?
Yeah, I've moved your slide.
All right, fantastic. Okay, I can see it now. So ISMS, Information Security Management System, is another name for 27001. It contains a set of policies, or it consists of policies, of procedures, of guidelines, of practices, of activities, of people, all trying to manage under the control of an organization in its management of information. What do we mean by management of information? It means it contains the direction that management wants to move in protecting that information, and then they create a system. That means it's not based on what one person knows, it's not based on the skill of one person, it's the whole organization, so it's a system. That's why it's called ISMS. They create a system, they manage it, it's under their control. If it comes from somewhere, it comes into their premises, and they do their level best to make sure it is protected and that there's value for anybody that is interested. Okay, so it's interested parties. It also contains a series of guidelines, not just policies and procedures. I said practices, activities, and then of course, guidelines on how to keep the documents to show that you've done what you say you want to do, or all that is required. Guidelines for auditing, guidelines for continual improvement, and then when there are non-conformities, that you actually move to correct it. You don't just leave it. The essence and the way it's built, it forces organizations to take corrective action and sometimes preventive action. So the mode of correcting things that go wrong is a way of mixing corrective action and preventive action. Corrective action because it has already happened, so it's the cost is justified by that. Or preventive action sometimes before it even happens, puts those controls in place. So you see sometimes people want to argue that, hey, we haven't had a virus attack, we haven't had a cyber attack, why do you want to put this control in place? ISO makes you look forward and prevent things from happening. One of my clients recently, I was telling them, hey, this pandemic, I can help you put a policy in place. And they say, oh, but you have already done that, because I was just sending out emails. That's 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you helped us with our business continuity. And part of that, you included a pandemic response. And I was like, oh, wow, that's good. Yeah. So you do preventive action. You are forward looking. You plan for the known and the unknown. And that's what ISMS helps you do. It helps you put preventive controls, detective controls, and corrective controls in place, and all to control or to protect the loss of information or the disclosure of information, which is in confidentiality, keeping things in confidence, or the alteration and modification of it, which is integrity. So if you have information that you want to preserve in the way it is, you will protect its integrity. And then of course, having information when you need it, because the timeliness of information is important to certain businesses. As an example, Amazon being an e-commerce business, being online at the right time, giving information to prospective customers and even typical customers that are existing, for them, availability will be important. Having access to the information or to the service when it's needed. So that's availability. That's the case with ISMS. It helps you build your resilience. Now, resilience, and why we have it there, is not business continuity. It's anticipation that you get hit. Because in information security, we say it's not a question of if, it's a question of when you get a cyber attack or an attack in information security. So resilience means you can take the hit and do Matrix. What's Keanu Reeves' name in Matrix? See? Neo, thank you. Oh, Nero, thank you. Now, it's not to say I won't get hit, but if I get hit, I'll rise up like a phoenix. That's what it does. That's resilience, different from business continuity. So you can have a level of continuity, but you also want to have resilience because you would get hit. You want to be able to withstand those hits. Okay. Putting them all together now, an information security management system is a systematic approach. Remember, a systematic approach means it's organized, it's planned, it hasn't taken management by surprise. They know about it, they're involved in it. It's the whole system, It has processes and steps, so it's systematic to design, to implement, to maintain, to check, to audit the objectives, the reason for doing it. Okay, it incorporates continuous feedback, like I told you, because you're doing a PDCA cycle, which is iterative, and by way of the ISO, we said it was customer focused, it involves people, it involves feedback. So we have to have a way of getting that feedback within the loop or within the procedure. It also addresses changes over time because of the controlled improvement. We talked about how it illustrates with our needs in society, how technology changes. We saw how cars are no longer the way they are. I was looking at a video recently. There was a test of a flying car in Japan, and somebody told me, oh, but Dubai are going to start using their flying taxi as well. So you see, there's always continual improvement. By nature, we are always hungry. After a few hours of feeding us, we want more, and that's what this embraces as well. Besides, threats change. The value of an asset can change over time. The need of a business can change. Its processes, its products, the vulnerabilities of the things we buy. So if we have a Windows Server 2008 version in our premises and we want to update because time has passed, the new stuff we bring in can introduce new vulnerabilities. So we have to address these vulnerabilities and the change as well. And also the value that changes in that regard means the impact will be different. As we grow older, the impact of taking an injection is different. Well, for some, they still are afraid of injection. But you see, as you grow, as threats grow, as things change, impacts change. As the value of the asset changes, the impact also might change as well. Okay, so the high-level goals of an ISMS means we want to minimize risk. We cannot eliminate risk completely, but we want to keep it within reason, within our appetite, within what we can consume and still operate. Okay, so we want to minimize risk up to our level. We want to ensure business continuity, which we just said now, and on top of that, add resilience. Eventually gets to a point where we are proactively working. By the time you do the whole cycle of PDCA, you plan security, you do it, you check it, and you improve. We'll get to the point where we are proactive rather than being reactive, because that's the whole essence of risk management. Plan for things that will come, okay? And so we'll be proactive. The area of focus, business processes and assets. We give the illustration of the HR recruitment process. So we focus on processes and the assets contained within that process. For that, we have a recruitment process. What are the things that enable that business process? If another company comes and say, hey, we make biscuits and it's important for us. Without making biscuits, we'll run out of operation, we can't operate. Everything that enables making of biscuits becomes important. So the carving of the biscuit, the baking, how we get the supplies become assets. That making of biscuit becomes a business process, and the things that enable that, the mold, the software, the website where we sell it, they now become assets. Okay, so we want to reduce risk to those assets and supporting assets or related systems, because sometimes the interdependency between processes, between systems, have a great bearing on those primary assets. It's not looking at just the primary asset, because sometimes we have, say, without payroll, HR cannot function. Without accounts, IT cannot function. So you have to look at interdependencies as well. That's why we say it can be targeted towards specific disciplines, and sometimes it can be comprehensive and go broader than that. So we can go to, say, we want to implement on a key process. Sometimes we can say we want to implement it in a department, and sometimes we can say we want to implement it throughout the organization. And that's why it is not tactical. It is not tactical because it involves budget, it involves expenditure, it involves responsibilities, and sometimes it even involves a change of culture. You can't change the culture of a business without top management being involved. It's like going to somebody's home and saying, hey, you're going to start going to bed at 8, when typically you go to bed at 9. the owners, the parents, or the guardians of the home, or the custodians, are the ones that can change the culture. And that's why it is not tactical, it is strategic. Okay. So the high-level benefits of an ISMS is to have secure exchange of information. Remember I said we can get information from someone, either the candidate who is a HR candidate, or the government supplies us with information to do something about it, or customers or suppliers with a service provider or in the cloud. It gives us secure, it ensures secure exchange of information. Okay. If we get certified, we can differentiate ourselves and say, hey, we are a different class. Not only have we certified, we are a mature certified organization. So in your certification, even if another company is certified in your field, in your industry, as competitors, you can show by maturity that you are different. Because as a matter of fact, you look at this, there are so many people that drive. But if I have a Tesla, I'm not just going to give anybody that comes to tell me, hey, I've been driving since 1920. Let me have your Tesla. It's that important for me to protect it. I'll look at how mature they are, how many points are there on their license before I brave it to give it to them. Okay, so there's maturity in that. It separates different companies. It tells you who is who has good security and who doesn't have that. And then of course it manages and minimizes our risk exposure. It builds a culture of security. I just told you about culture of security and how it has to come from top management. If you want to say in an organization, the essence of culture, if we allow people into our premises, but they must have visitors badges, how do we ensure there's consistent challenges when those kind of people come to our premises? Is by building a culture so that consistently we recognize the same kinds of risks. Everybody attends to risk in the same manner, in a similar manner. That is a culture of security. Okay. And in doing that, we are protecting CIA. The CIA of confidentiality, integrity, and availability is known as the triad of security. So because it's in a triangle, when we look at it, it affects functionality. That means we put our controls to protect us from losing or getting information disclosed, from getting information getting corrupted, integrity, or not having it when we need it, availability. And it should be offered throughout the business. Yeah, remember we said it's a system. So it offers organization-wide protection, everybody involved. Now, if we adhere to the standard, even though it's a standard and not a regulation, but by adhering to its requirements and it being international and accredited, there will be a clearer definition of processes. Within it, there's a requirement for demarcating roles, segregation of duties, everybody knowing what roles they should hold, nobody overlapping with somebody else's duty, everything properly aligned, everything properly spelled out. It results in better efficiency because it also requires you to not only demarcate those roles and responsibilities, but to also ensure people are competent in their roles by way of recruiting them with their knowledge or training them to fill gaps when you find gaps until they know what to do. Okay? And also aligning with Annex SL. So the clauses 4 to 10 are referred to as Annex SL. I stopped calling it Annex SL because I looked at it and I saw it was strategic. So in my lectures, I started calling it Annex Strategic Level, and people laughed at me. But if you look at it, it's actually strategic level. Okay, clauses 4 to 10 are strategic, and you must comply to them. Annex A, which is the second part of the standard, is optional. You know, it's based on your risk assessment. You select controls from that annex. But within clause 4 to 10, you cannot say which ones to apply. You must apply all of them as long as you want to get certified. Okay. So some other benefits: keep confidential information secure. It provides customers and stakeholders with confidence that you manage risk properly. So if they see that you have a certificate ISO 27001, they want to do business with you. They have confidence in the way you manage risk. It boosts the confidence of customers and business partners. So when you have suppliers and they say, hey, you have 27,001, you say no, then they are worried about sharing information with you or doing business with you. Okay? It actually boosts that. It also ensures consistency in the way you deliver your product or service. Because every time you go through the process, remember there's policy, there's procedure, and there's guideline. That means you always do it the same way and it's always secure. You could also get customer satisfaction. You'll be protecting your assets, protect the people. Remember, people are also assets. Customers are also included. It increases reliability and security of your systems. We talked about resilience already, so it increases that. And in the way it is deployed, you will align with customer requirements. Not only would you align with legal requirements, regulatory requirements, but you will also align with customer requirements. So if customers have a reason, as an example, say customers require you to provide an online service and the availability of that service is 99.9%. The way ISO allows you to do that is that it forces you to look at all your requirements of your interested parties, not only the legal side, not only the regulatory side, that is your industry, but also to open up all your agreements, all your contracts, and fish out requirements that have to do with confidentiality, integrity, and in this case of 99%, availability. So if you are not abiding by those terms, it becomes a non-conformity. Even though within ISO might not have specifically that requirement, it forces you to look at requirements of your interested parties. So you will see that by doing that, you align with customer requirements and not only legal and not only regulatory. Okay, let's move on. The PDCA cycle, the Deming wheel cycle, D-E-M-I-N-G, Deming wheel cycle, is a process approach that is iterative, and it is well known in industry for for building processes in a continuous iterative loop. Okay, so that's it. It starts with a plan. If you fail to plan, it means you have planned to fail, you know, as the cliche goes. So the planning is important. And under the plan, there are several steps. So it is 4 phases of implementation. You have the plan phase with several steps. Different methodologies have different numbers of steps. In the one I've designed for some organizations, there are 9 steps under planning that includes risk assessment and eventually ends in a statement of applicability, which we'll talk about later. In the do phase, all the controls you figured out from the risk assessment. Remember, when you do risk assessment, you identify the risk, you evaluate it, and then you give it a weighting and ranking to treat it. You treat it with controls. Those controls, you are implementing them under the do phase. When you implement them, you let them run, operate for a bit. That's the doing. They operate for some time, minimum 3 months, and then check to see by auditing. But before you audit, you must have checked it in several layers. Say the operators check what they do, they assess themselves. They give it to partners, peers to do a peer review, and then a formal internal audit happens under the check. So we have those 3 steps. When we check, we might find non-conformities. We want to improve those non-conformities under the act phase. So that's the PDCA cycle. And when you improve under the act, you feed it back into the plan. So you see, in the plan phase, we are kicking off the ISMS. We establish a policy that connects us to our requirements, that in law, in regulation, and with our customers. Then we say, this is our objective, this is what we want to achieve in security, or the ISMS, as it may be. The policy then derives processes. So we create processes that align with the thought of management. Management would have made a high-level policy statement. We will secure blah, blah, blah. We want to be business, we want to ensure business continuity as we express them in objectives. Now, all of those help us to develop procedures and processes. From those processes and procedures, it will lead us to behave to protect our environment because we've expressed objectives and eventually improve security. Okay, so that's the plan. Then we fit it into the do. Remember, look at the arrow from the plan to the do. Once we have established policy, procedures, and objectives, which are the main things in the plan, we'll now implement it, do it. Okay? Remember, we also said under the plan, there's a risk assessment that leads us to implement controls. Those controls are implemented in do. So the policy is kicked off. The controls are implemented. The procedures now have meaning, and the procedures now become business as usual. So we eventually want to take it from the project phase that it might be under the plan into the way we operate in the do. And that's the essence of it. We translate everything and transfer it, change it from planning or project phase or project situation into an operation situation. So that's why it's labeled as implementing and workings. Now, typically this implementation that we talk about, this do, minimum is 3 months, but the typical is for small organizations with employee sizes of 50 to 149 is 6 to 8 months. Yeah, 6 to 8 months to do the phase 1, and then the phase 2, which is the do, is 1 to 6 months. Remember, the 3 months minimum. That 1 month is no longer allowed when we audit. Okay, so the phase 2 of the do is now 3 months, and as you can see, it says it's dependent on the degree of non-conformities that come out. For medium organizations, 150 to 499, the phase 1 is 10 to 12 months. Now, remember, this is just a guide, so it's not a hard and fast rule, because different organizations have different complexities, different commitments to things like this, different budgets. There's so many things you take into consideration when we're implementing ISO. So small organizations, medium ones 10 to 12 months, and large ones 13 to 18 months. This gives you an idea on how to build them if you're a consultant, or how to schedule your project if you are a permanent staff and you've been given that assignment. It just provides you with a guide on how to implement it. So we've looked at the P, we've looked at the D, now we have the C and the A, the check and the act. After we've done it, it's operated, we now want to check what we've done. So we assess and measure the performance of all the things we've implemented. We see how well the policy that we planned is working. We see how well the objectives we set, whether we fulfill them. We see how well the things we are doing is working, how well the people are doing, how well the technology is fulfilling the reason for being there as well. So a justification for all the expenditure is what we want to see. And the requirement within the standard is that we report all this to management. That is why we say it's an ISMS. We don't want low-level staff to take responsibility for this. We want it to have importance at the highest level of the organization, and that's why it's a management system. So management have to look at it, get a report, get a feedback, get some way of knowing what's going on and whether it's successful or not, and then of course acting on those things that have been fed them. So the audit is reported to management, and then they review it, and that's how we see the clauses. We'll explain the clauses very soon. We'll see that the clauses lead us up to management review, so that we can improve. The last clause in the strategic level in Annex SL is improvement. Okay, so that we do corrective action from the audit if there are any faulty things or non-conformities, and then we implement them in a corrective action and preventive action manner. Yeah, that's what it says on the basis of the check that we've done in the audit, and when management have had a review of it, we now improve them. The reason why it goes to management again is when we have non-conformities and we want to include costs issues. So we want management to put a signature to say, yes, go and get this thing to improve to all the space where we have failings. If, as an example, the audit says that we don't have enough staff in certain areas like risk management, it could be to improve employ so and so, or we don't have firewall or a security information and event management tool, and we're supposed to have those things. We want management involved so that they put a signature and we can go to finance and get those things in place. If we fail in any of this, and regulators, as an example, come in, they won't be asking the person at reception. They won't be talking to middle level staff. They want to be talking to top level management. Why did security fail? Remember, we said ISMS is customer focused. They have to get a benefit. We're doing it for their own benefit. Security has to be correct. Okay. So now the clauses. Wale, do you want a pause or we go ahead?
Okay, maybe we should just pause for 5 minutes. So this is 2033. So if we pause for 5 minutes, so we're going to be coming back at exactly
27.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just come back at 2040. Let's do 7 minutes. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much again for your time. So if you need to go to the loo, you could do that now. If you need to drink water or take a cup of tea or something just to eat, yeah, you could quickly do that in the next 7 minutes. I'm going to pause the recording and we would continue at exactly 2040. And what would happen is Roy's going to take us through this journey. I mean, continue the training up until 2055, and I will use 5 minutes, that window. It will take us exactly to 9 o'clock, which is 2100, to give you, just to give you some further announcement, update. As you all know that the training continues tomorrow up until Friday. So that we don't make the same mistake today. I'll be giving an update that will be helping us in terms of joining the meeting or the section tomorrow, so that there won't be any hiccups or any problems that most people face today. So yes, I've taken 1 minute out of your time, so 6 minutes, and we'll be back at exactly 2040. Okay, I'll pause the recording now.
All right.
Can I also ask that a lot of people have been asking questions about whether we're going to share the slide, whether the video is going to be available. So if you have any question, I would like to answer all of those, all of your questions, hopefully within that 5 minutes window when we finish for today. So keep populating the chat box with your questions, and I would, myself and Tunde will collate all of the questions. I will attempt to answer them as much as possible. Okay, so again, use the chat box to input your questions, and yeah, we'll be looking in the chat box, to answer them. Thank you, and yeah, we would all return, and the training will continue at 2040. Roy, if you're ready.
I'm good.
You're ready? Okay. You can fire on.
Okay. So we're going to look at the clauses. Okay, so the recorded slide, the recording is going to be shared. Just want to reiterate that because I'm seeing repeated questions on that. Okay.
I'm going to address all of those questions. We will share the recording, but it's important that I'm upfront with you. I'm not going to share my slide with you. Okay. I will share the recording. The slide is not the slide, unfortunately. You can watch the video, but I'm not going to share my slide with you. All right.
Okay. Also, Mr. Olowu, can you hear me correctly now? If you're still there, just type yes.
I think that person might have some issues with their computer.
All right.
But maybe if you can just increase the tempo of your voice. I mean,
very good.
Yeah. And that,
so we want to understand. Yeah, very good. Now, because we said 27001 contains requirements, it means it's important that we understand the clauses. These requirements, the things that we need to do, are contained between clauses 4 to 10 of the first part of the standard and also in the annex for controls. So you see, it says the core requirements of the standard are contained in clauses 4.1 to 10.2. So in this clause 4 has 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3 actually, and clause 10 has 10.1 and 10.2. So from 4.1 all the way to 10.2 with all the branches, you need to understand it. And even the annex, all the controls, there are 114 controls to understand. Now look at clause 4. The context of the organization is in clause 4. Clause 5 is leadership. Clause 6, planning. Clause 7, support. 9, operation. 8, operation. 9, performance evaluation. And 10, improvement. Now look at this. Clause 6 is planning. That's our planning. That's our PDCA. 8 is operation. That's our do. 9 is performance evaluation. That's our check. And 10 is improvement. That's our act. So the PDA cycle is enmeshed and is kind of part of the whole standard in 27001. We have our PDCA cycle within all the clauses. Okay. Next slide, please. So clause 4 has 4.1 all the way to 4.4. 4.1, understanding the organization and its context, because ISMS, ISO 27001 implementation is not the same for every organization. It is contextual. You have to understand, pamper a business, ask their name, where they're located, what they do, what's peculiar to them. That is context. Business analysts understand that when they do things like SWOT and PESTLE, yeah, to get the strength, the weakness, the opportunities, and the threats of organizations, and then consider political factors, economic factors, social factors, technological factors, legal factors, and environmental factors to get an understanding of the business, okay? To understand what they do and what makes them tick. 4.2 is understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. To understand the needs and expectations of interested parties, you first need to know those interested parties. So you evaluate them, you list them out, then figure out what their requirement is with regards to information security, and then of course, what your contractual obligations are. So that's 4.2, okay? In 4.3, you want to now say, where should we apply this ISO 27001? Where should we scope this ISMS? And it says, to do that, go back to 4.1 and 4.2. Look at your interested parties and their requirements, which we did in 4.2, and then look at your internal and external progress, which we did in 4.1, and any other existing processes. Okay, once you do 1, 2, 3, 4.4 is that you've established an ISMS. So you declare we're kicking off an ISMS. Each one of these clauses and sub-clauses have what we refer to as deliverables. And when we get to the implementation approach, we'll show you how that is. But this is recognizing and understanding the clauses. Okay. Clause 5 is leadership. No project without management commitment or involvement stands a good chance of success. So we require leadership. And remember, we said it's management system, so management has to be involved. In fact, it has to be a top-down drive. It has to start from management. And 5.1 speaks about leadership and commitment. Not only do we require leadership, we require them to be committed, so we have to find a way to demonstrate their commitment. So senior management have a key role to play. They must ensure cooperation, they must ensure understanding of security and the importance of it, and they must also be there to provide the resources that we need. That is 5.1. 5.2 is a requirement for policy that management must align security with the direction the business is going. So 5.2, and in fact all of 5, if you want to understand it, is that the business is going in a direction. They are not there because of security. They are a train going in a direction. Security is a coach on that train. A coach that is not going in the same direction as a train will derail that train. So security has to align to the direction the business is going. If we want to be making TVs, how do we make them securely? If we want to do business with a country that may be a rogue country, that's the direction the business wants to go. How do we make them do that securely? So security has to align with business. And then the policy that comes out of that must be documented, must be communicated and disseminated, and must be there, ready for those interested parties that are relevant to have them, whether they're internal or external. And then 5.3 is making sure people know their roles to play, whether they are suppliers, temporary staff contractors, or full-time staff in different areas within scope. They have to have their jobs told them, their jobs determined, documented, and communicated to them. Now, not just only communicated to them, they must acknowledge that they understand it, and that all lines are demarcated, and everybody will do things without overlapping somebody else's duties. Okay? And then clause 6 is the first P of our PDCA cycle. So it's the planning. Yeah, so this is where we do the planning of the project. We would have got management commitment. They would have said, oh yeah, go ahead and do this project. So now we plan it here to do it. Okay, we must address risks and opportunities. That's the high thing. All of the rest is 6.1.1, 6.1.2. The key thing in planning is risk management. But the risk is looking at the positive risk and the negative risk. So we're looking at threats as in risks, and we're looking at opportunities. We're not just looking at risk from a negative perspective. We'll plan proactively, preventive action, so that we can achieve our goals. That means we will say we want to prevent, we want to detect, we want to correct. There must be objectives. We will set those goals. Then do a risk assessment. The risk assessment is identifying risk, assessing it or analyzing it to get a ranking, and then be able to prioritize them. That is what is referred to as effective risk management or cost-effective risk management. So we assess it and we give it weighting. Accident and emergency understand that very well. They don't treat every patient the same. They attend to some that they believe they can rescue and save. That is called triaging, and we do that in information security as well. So we give risks ranking. High risk that have a chance of happening immediately, we would figure out what to do about them first. Okay, so we attend to risk in order of priority as well, and then treat them under 6.1.3 by defining a process to do so that everybody treats it the same. Remember, we said we want to be able to recognize risk the same and treat it the same. So we create a process. 6.1.4 is where we now have security objectives and plans to achieve them. That means long term, past the treatment. As part of the treatment, we create a statement of applicability. So under 6.1.3, we have what we refer to as a statement of applicability that contains all the controls that would attend to the risks that we've identified. Clause 7 is support. So it's not in the PDCA cycle, but it is not the least important. We have 5, leadership. Yeah, after we found out the context of the organization to make the implementation unique to its own situation, then we get management involved. Then we plan in 6. But here now we have to support it with the right resources. Remember I told you competence, it drives us to pick the right people, assign responsibilities, and those people we make responsible have to be competent by experience, by skill, and by knowledge. If there's a gap in their skills or in their knowledge in any way, we must close that gap so that they get the competence they require to run the ISMS. And that gap closure can come from training, just like you are here now. Okay, we must be able to figure out whether or not they are competent. And then for everybody else, like end users, we must make them aware of the ISMS objectives, of the ISMS policy and drive, and in what way they can contribute to the success. That's 7.3. In 7.4 is communication. Communicate policy, communicate security importance, communicate anything that is relevant for the ISMS. And we do that by using the 6 W's. What we want to communicate, why we're communicating, who will do that communication, to where will they take it to, and answer, and how will they do that communication, answering all the 6 W's by creating a communication plan. And then 7.5 is the need to keep certain documents. In 7.5.1a, we have mandatory documents, documents that we just have to have because the standard says if you want to get certified, you have to keep these documents. 7.5.1b says you determine other documents that are necessary to show effectiveness. And then 7.5.2 says we must create a process for life cycle documents, for creating documents, updating them, approving them, distributing them, storing them up to a certain time with regards to retention schedule, and also through its death. So a life cycle for maintaining documents we create from 7.5.2. And when we now create it, have a way of controlling access to it, have a way of controlling its availability when it's needed, and have a way of making sure it's secure so that not just anybody can update it, change it, and that it's also current. And that's where control of documents comes in 7.5.3. Okay. So that's support in clause 7. It supports the plan. It supports the operation. Can we move the slide, please? Yeah, so 7 is in between planning and operating. It supports the plan, it supports the operation. That's where we transit. So we would communicate to operation or production. Remember, the plan is the project. Communication now would inform people that, hey, we're bringing what we've implemented as a project into business as usual. This is where 7 comes in. You're communicating to them, and then operation is where you run it. But before you run it, make sure middle management are ready. That's where operational planning comes in. Even though it's operations, you want to plan and control that operation. You want to plan and control operators, so you are supervising them. So the ISMS must plan, you must implement, and then control your processes. So we've stepped down from policy or strategy to processes to operate. Or in the operation, we want to supervise correctly. So make sure your documents are adequate and they should form evidence that you have actually done those processes. And as part of the operation, remember in 6.1.1 to 3, we saw risk methodology or approach, we saw risk assessment, and we saw risk treatment. There we were planning the risk. In 8, we have risk assessment and risk treatment. So this is where we assess the risk that we planned in 6.1.2, and this is where we treat the risk that we also planned to treat in 6.1.3. So we planned risk in 6, we do the risk assessment and treatment here. So this is where we implement them. That's why operation is the do of our PDCA. Okay, next slide. 9 is the check of our PDCA. We are evaluating, but just like information security requires us to implement several controls in layers. So we have layered security or layered defenses, defense in depth. They are real concepts in information security. In the same manner, security requires us to check in layers as well. So we'll do self-assessment, we'll do peer review, we'll do due diligence between ourselves and partners, we'll do internal audit, which is formal, we'll do external audit, and then, of course, continuous monitoring. But within the business, we stop at management review. So we have monitoring as self-assessment. We have measuring that monitoring metrics. We have analyzing the results of what we measure and then evaluating them for ranking. Okay. Following that, we now will improve. So we monitor, we audit, and management reviews the results of the audit so that they can improve. It is a requirement to improve. Remember, clause 4 to 10 are requirements. They are not optional. This is how ISO 27001 drives us to be resilient, to be secure, to do things that are beneficial to our customers. Okay, so this is how it ensures that happens. And 10, well, you must identify non-conformities through management reviews, through audits. So the feed or the input to 10 is from clause 9. We must look at our reviews, we must look at our audits, we must look at our evaluations, and then improve in 10.2. Cool. I think one needs to.
We should stop here. Yeah, because we said we're going to finish for night today. Since
yes.
you wrap up the courses. Yeah, so this would be a good place to stop so that we can continue from here tomorrow. All right. So Roy, thank you so much for your time today, and also I want to thank all of our participants as well for joining. We were fluctuating between 160 and 170 participants, which is a great number. So tomorrow, the training will continue up until Friday. So can I advise that if you want to continue with the training, to join well on time. The bridge is going to be open at 6. The training starts at 7. But when I say the bridge is going to be open, it just simply means that the meeting room would be open, the virtual meeting room. So you can join and we can admit you into the meeting room. So you don't want to leave it till late, like most people join late today. And I understand some of the challenges that you guys experience. So I would open the bridge tomorrow, the virtual room, and you can just connect from anywhere, your mobile phone, and you will just be admitted into the meeting room and the training will start at exactly 7. So for those that join us late, we said part of what we intend to do with this training is we want you to take something away tangible. So what that means is at the end of this training, we're going to have a kind of assessment, like a test to test your knowledge on what Roy has taught you so far, and personally, I think it would be very useful for you, as most people will be going back to work after the COVID-19 by God's grace. Some people might want to change jobs. And one of the questions that I suspect that recruiters are going to be asking you, it might just be an informal conversation like, oh, what did you do during the COVID-19? And, you want to tell them, the training you've been, what you've done. And, they would also, there would be a follow-up question to say, oh, can you prove that? okay? And this is where the certificate of attendance would be useful for that reason. So what we're saying is, or what I'm suggesting is, I plan as a business, to issue certificate of attendance for as many that want it. But the only way, for you to get one from us is by participating in the assessment that we're going to be doing. It's going to be online. We're going to make it available. Is multiple choice questions where you could just say, A is the right answer, B is the right answer, or none of the above, something like that. Okay. We would post the questions to you directly, and you would be able to answer them maybe within a few minutes and and once you send it back to us, we would assess you and we would issue a certificate of attendance. The certificate of attendance, we will send it to you via email, but if you want a hard copy of it, then it will just simply means that we will need your home address to send one to you. We're also going to be bringing a whole lot of information that would help you in this journey. Like I said, some people are new to ISO 27001, even cybersecurity as a whole, and we have a lot planned for you guys. So for example, if you're a project manager, or a business analyst, or someone that is interested in cloud security or whatever it is, I would try as much as possible on Friday to do what I call a career path section. Where I'm going to be taking what Roy has taught you so far and map it out, to various roles, so that you can see the usefulness of ISO 27001. ISO 27001, like most people know, is a de facto standard. It's the best practice, and most organizations they follow the principles. For some organizations, they comply to it. As a matter of fact, if I'm wrong, if I'm not wrong, most organizations in the UK comply to ISO 27001. In the GDPR era, it's a lot easier for organizations to actually comply to GDPR, by using ISO 27001 as a baseline. So it's a well-known standard. It's used all across, not only in the UK. For those that are connecting, to this platform from Nigeria, it's also used in Nigeria as well, in the United States, just all across, because it is what has been accepted as a best practice. Okay, so a lot for you to learn, a lot for you to gain, nothing at all, for you to lose, if I can put it that way. So I would expect the same number of people that are connected today, that join us today, to return tomorrow, because we have a lot to show you and also to share with you, particularly in terms of your career. We also have a lot of packages as well. For those that want to go to the level of accreditation with PCB, I'm going to be bringing a whole lot of information to you tomorrow. So I would again implore you, please. The meeting room is going to be open much more early tomorrow. Try and connect in as early as possible, so that you avoid all the hiccups of, oh, can you try to admit me? The link is not working. The link that is working now. So please, tomorrow, I would again advise that we connect. There's been so many questions, and I think some people are just saying thank you. Let's look at some of the questions. So some people, you've asked questions around, oh, can I get the slide? Can I get the video? Again, I can share the video with you, but not the slide. Okay, so the slide is the intellectual property of the trainer. So we've worked so hard to put this together. So we will not share the slide with you on this occasion, but we will share the video with you. The video is as good as the slide itself. Okay. Let's see the other questions. What time is the assessment on Friday? I'll go to Stanley ask the question. I would be bringing you more information tomorrow in terms of the time that we're going to be having the assessment. Yeah, more information will come tomorrow. I think the same question from Eddie.
You did outside.
Oh, goodness me. Someone is...
what did you do outside by this time?
Can you mute yourself, please? Don't unmute yourself. I'm going to kick you out, Joan. I'm sorry. I'm going to remove you because you're not following the rules. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So we would, and again, it's important that we say this. Maintain, you know, you know, quietness wherever you are. Don't unmute yourself, please. Uh, if I remove you, from this meeting, it's hard for you to rejoin because the system will not allow you. All right. Someone had the similar experience when they were sharing their video, and we have to remove them. So I'm just again just warning you ahead. So do not share your video. Don't make your background noisy because if you get removed, then it's difficult for you to reconnect. So all questions around what time the assessment is going to happen on Friday. I'm going to be bringing more information about that tomorrow in terms of the assessment. Someone says, when can we have time to ask questions? Is it possible we write? And so in terms of questions, you can use the chat box. It's just that we don't trust your background. There may be a whole lot of noise there. So for me to unmute you, I'm just taking the risk that you're just going to mess up all of our recording, okay? But what we're going to do tomorrow, for those that wanted to ask questions, so I would, before Roy starts the training tomorrow, you can ask all the questions. Then we would, then maybe what would happen is we will not record the section, or the section will not. We will not kick off the recording of the section. Then you can ask all of your questions before the training before the training start. Okay, so this was detailed and comprehensive. Okay, so again, thank you, Stephen. Somebody was talking about the yeah. Okay. So again, I think I've eaten into your time. Well, yeah, great section. Okay, all right. So I think we should close now. Thank you, guys. I would make the session, the recording, I would do the conversion of the video, maybe at some point tomorrow. I will share the link with you guys, and we can talk about it when the training starts tomorrow, just to confirm whether you've received the link or not. But again, thank you so much. If any of your friends had difficulty in connecting to the platform today, just go back to them, that they should try as much as possible to sign in early tomorrow, and hopefully there won't be any problems. Okay. Are there more questions, or people are just saying thank you? Andre says, I know you said you're going to give us more information about career path. I'm interested in the cloud DevOps. Yeah, we're going to cover all of that. Yes, we have a lot around cloud security. If you're interested, we cover AWS, Azure, and also Google Cloud as well. We cover a lot around Kubernetes. So this is Andre, a lot around Kubernetes. So if you've heard about containerized solution, we do all of that as well. So if you're interested, just, you have our email address, ping me an email, and we can also talk about it as well. Someone says, can you check the volume from your end and ask the trainer? I think all the volumes, I think people can hear me very well.
Hello, Wale.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just on that, I think for everyone, once you log in early and do the pre-check, you will not have this challenge. Yeah. The challenge is we would have already kicked in, we've done a bit of pre-check and we're ready to go. So we can't be going back and forth. So everyone should try as much as possible to join in on time, do the quick pre-check that we normally would do before we kick off.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks today for that. And that's more reason why we're going to, open the platform way early tomorrow, so that people can connect in and we can do all of those check as much as possible. Someone says, is coding required for ISO 27001? Absolutely no. No, you don't even need any technical experience, to do well within that space, ISO. No coding is required. ISO is quite interesting. Anybody can do it if you put your heart to it. Okay. Are we using the same link? Yes. Nothing has changed. You're connecting, using the same link as to the one we sent to you. So we're using the same link for tomorrow. What time are we looking at tomorrow? Exactly. The training is going to start at 7. The training is going to start at 7 tomorrow.